The following programming is sponsored by Mark J. Bernstein. The views expressed do not necessarily reflect the views of this station, its management, or Beasley Media Group. Entrepreneur, founder, author, and financial advisor Mark Bernstein helps high-performing business owners turn their visions into reality. Through his innovative work and the Forward Focus Forums, Mark connects entrepreneurs to resources that fuel their success. Founders Forum is a radio show and podcast where entrepreneurs share their journeys, revealing the lessons they've learned and the stories behind their success. Join Mark and his guests for a mix of inspiration, valuable insights, and a little fun. Now, let's dive in.
Good morning, America. How are you? This is Mark Bernstein. This is Founders Forum, and it's a very interesting time. It's before the holidays in 2025. I don't know when you'll be listening to this as a podcast, but if you're listening on the radio, it may even be a couple weeks from now. But a lot of interesting and not always great things going on in the world right now. And we do two shows often in a day, and this is the second time we'll be talking about this topic. But our guest today is Marta, and I'll introduce her fully in a few minutes. But the word of the day is clarity. And given where you are right now in this moment, what does clarity mean to you?
Wow. So for me, clarity really is about kind of slowing down a little bit. I think, especially today, we're running so quickly from one thing to the next, from one news media cycle to the other, from one innovative solution to the next. And sometimes we just kind of need to slow down and think about things in a very clear fashion, right? So for me, that's what clarity means, just kind of slow down and think about things a little more clearly.
So it's a technique, slowing down to gain clarity.
Correct.
Right?
Yes.
Good. That's good, because we've talked about, there's clarity can be applied to all kinds of things: clarity of purpose, clarity of intentions, clarity of just your schedule, and all the things. But right, it's hard to get clarity unless you can slow down, and it's right where I am right now too. So I get it. So let me introduce Marta to you. She is Marta Sylvester, founder and CEO of NuGen Packaging, a packaging solutions provider changing the way brands think about sustainability. With more than 3 decades of experience, she brings both expertise and fresh perspective to how packaging can drive impact in today's market. And Marta is from, you're living in New Jersey, Central Jersey, North Jersey, right?
West Orange.
Orange, Northern Jersey. And your company's also based there as well?
In Morris County, in Florham Park.
Right, up Florham Park. Got it. So she drove down to Ballackinwood, PA today, which I really appreciate. And, Marta, so you have an interesting story about how you got into this business. And it starts with you being a mom, a stay-at-home mom, I think. And why don't you tell us the story from there?
Yeah, so I just had my son, my older son, and I was home for a couple of years. And it became quite evident very soon that we needed another income. We were in Brooklyn at the time, and I knew that at some point Michael would require a private school education because he was an incredibly curious kid. And so we thought, well, I got to get out there. I've got to get a job. But I wanted something that would allow me some flexibility so that I could still be a part of Michael's life academically, I just wanted to be a part of it as well. Mm-hmm. And I wanted something that would give me some more control over how much money I could make, right? So those were the things that were really important to me. But I hadn't completed my degree. So getting a job in marketing or sales was quite difficult without that degree, especially as a woman in the business world. So,
and this is when, the 1980s, maybe?
In the early 90s, in the early 1990s. And so I ended up finding a job as an assistant to the marketing manager. And I thought, well, you know what? It's a step in the right direction. I'll take it and we'll see what happens. And I loved every minute of it. They had me making cold calls and really, working throughout the entire time in every aspect of the business. And then finally, I was given an opportunity to go into sales. I was actually the one that pursued the opportunity. And when I sat with the CEO, he said, fine, let's give it a chance. He was giving me 3 months to see what I could do. And then, the story goes on from there. I was successful doing that and continued in packaging, primarily because it fed me so much. I really loved what I did. And I loved seeing the end result. So stayed doing this. And then in 2010, sitting with my kids, we were talking about climate change, which is something that's, really important to us. And my son, just looked at me and said, "Hey, Mom, exactly how many tons of plastic are you personally responsible for that are sitting in a landfill today?" And I thought,
ooh,
oh, that hurts, right? And it hurts because I was very responsible in switching customers from metal closures to plastic closures. So yeah, it really hit home. And I'm not going to lie. Initially, I thought, you ingrate. Who do you think paid for
Right.
for all your private school education and everything else, right? But
by the way, I know you have a conscience, and I know you're ethical person and all that. But I appreciate your honest response
as a parent,
right? Sure.
Yeah. Let's go. Wait, what's going on? But it really weighed. It weighed on me, and for a couple of weeks, I knew that I had to do something. And so I went to the company that I was working for. I was VP of Sales and Marketing, and said, "Hey, can we just carve out a little area for sustainability, and I'll tend to it and see if it grows." And they wanted none of it. They were looking to sell their company, and so they really wanted me to focus on growing the sales so that they would be more marketable. So I ended up just jumping off of the entrepreneurial cliff. And, I thought, hey, either there's going to be a splat, I'll pick myself up and I'll find a job, or I can be successful, and we'll see what happens in a year if everything is good.
Just time for how many years into your career was this happened?
Oh, 20, about 20
20
some
years.
odd.
Okay,
Yeah,
okay.
20 some odd.
And it was still the secondary income in the house, or
No.
the marital situation changed?
So at that point I was divorced.
Okay.
And I was the primary income. But I had a little bit of a nest egg to kind of keep me going.
Gotcha. Okay.
So I figured we could do that. I talked to a few customers, and I knew that I would still have to stay within that plastic environment for a little while until I figured it out.
Right.
And I did. And today I can happily say that scale has tipped dramatically, and 80% of our business is now in sustainable materials other than plastic.
And how long did it take you to get that going?
So started in 2012, and it's just been about 3 years where there's been just a huge shift in the brand mentality because consumers are expecting more.
So I'm going to say this tongue-in-cheek, but the motto of this show is entrepreneurship is a smooth ride. Which, right? So
No
I wish
way.
you could see her face.
No way.
Right, of course it's not. So tell us about that, the challenges that you had in building your business.
Right. So I think the biggest challenge that we had was getting brands to really understand the importance of sustainable packaging, right? That was the thing, like finding the materials and then trying to sell those materials to the brands.
And when you say brands, describe who your customers are.
So the end customer, so nutraceutical companies, pharmaceutical companies, companies in the OTC bracket, so pain meds, allergy meds that are over the counter, and personal care.
Do some
clients.
Cosmetic type things, or kind of? Or?
Not really cosmetics, more personal care. So like shampoos, lotions, that sort of thing in the natural space.
Right.
That's kind of where we've always been, in that natural space.
And you're using, I know, aluminum packaging to a certain extent.
Correct.
So how do you do that with shampoo as an example?
So with shampoos, we typically are using aluminum bottles and then some kind of pump as a dispensing mechanism, because you can't really squeeze any of the product out with an aluminum bottle.
And they're recyclable, obviously.
They're 100% and infinitely recyclable,
Nice,
which is the
nice.
thing that we love about aluminum. We can honestly say that 72% of all aluminum ever extracted is still in use today. That's huge.
So the pump is aluminum as well?
No, so the pumps are typically plastic.
Yep.
And so we like to use monomaterials so that they can be
They're recyclable also
recycled
then. Gotcha,
easier.
gotcha.
Yeah.
So you can put the whole thing in the recycling bin and it's good.
Yeah.
Ah, that's great. That's amazing. So again, challenges. So what other kind of challenges? Do you have a lot of employees?
So nope, we're very lean and mean.
Yep.
We have most of everything that we do is outsourced.
Yep.
Accounting is outsourced, but we have a great team. And I think what I would say the important thing about hiring outside, and that was a challenge until I kind of figured it out.
Contracting manufacturers?
Manufacturers, yes, but also just our, like
Your core
for
employees.
finance and our
gotcha.
third-party logistics
Gotcha.
companies. And I think what I ended up learning a little bit later, I wish I'd learned that early on, is that I needed to interview these companies and really make sure that they were going to teach me as well.
Right.
So not enough that they were going to handle the bookkeeping and all of the other financing things that I needed them to handle, but that they would be happy to teach me the things that I didn't know, so that we could have more intelligent conversations, right? Instead of do this, well, okay, do this why, and that was important to me. I learned a little bit later, but early enough.
So I imagine you had
for it
to
to make a
cycle through some providers until you got there. I would
Yes.
imagine, right?
Yes.
Again, I wish you could see her face. Her
Yeah.
reaction. So I got you. So those are challenges. Now, how about you went through the pandemic, and there could be supply chain issues and things like that. Did you have any particular challenges through the pandemic?
We did. We definitely had a lot of challenges. A lot of the product that we were selling at the time was coming from China, was coming from India, Germany. So yeah, there were huge bottleneck challenges there, and it's part of that Brooklyn scrappy nature. We were always able to pivot. The thing that I will say, and we stayed afloat and we did well. We actually did well during the pandemic. But the thing that it allowed us to do was to focus more on innovation. So we had the time to talk to other manufacturers that were on the cusp of interesting things. And that's kind of where we found our aluminum nutraceutical bottle company.
Now, I have to ask you, now today you might have another challenge with tariffs because a lot of your materials come internationally. Is that still the case?
Yes. That is definitely still the case.
And I know, and I'm not sure where it stands, but there's been specific conversations regarding aluminum, I know. And,
yes.
And is that being heavily tariffed at this point?
So it is definitely being heavily tariffed, more tariffed from Asia, and we're not buying a whole lot of aluminum from Asia. We're buying it from countries that are not as heavily tariffed.
So that helps.
So it definitely helps. We would love to be able to buy these products here in the U.S., but all of these aluminum companies that are in the U.S. are over capacity. Like they can't keep up on the beverage side. So doing something innovative in my space was just not something that we could do.
And while this may give rise to more manufacturers in the United States, that will take time, I imagine, which seems to be one of the flaws in this policy a little bit.
Right. So anything in glass or aluminum, while we would love to have them here, that tends to take anywhere from 2 to 5 years. And if you can imagine companies having to wait 5 years in order to see, a gain, and then not know what the next administration is going to do is, kind of puts a damper on things.
Right. It's we're just about time for a break, but in the meantime, I just want to observe that I want to ask you about the strengths you've built from these challenges. So you've mentioned a couple already. One was teaching your vendors to teach you so you could have intelligent conversations. Another one was innate, which was Brooklyn scrappiness, right? So you got to develop that further, I assume, from some of these challenges. And I'd like to ask you what else you might have learned and what kind of strengths you built as a result of that to handle future challenges right after this commercial.
Still using the same old packaging? Time to wake up. This is NuGen Packaging. We specialize in sustainable packaging solutions for nutraceutical, pharma, over-the-counter, personal care, and household brands ready to stand out. Think aluminum bottles that grab attention and drive sales, premium glass that makes a statement, and PCR plastics that reduce your environmental footprint without sacrificing quality. NuGen elevates your shelf presence, strengthens your supply chain, and gets you ahead of regulatory changes before your competitors even see them coming. Your product deserves better. Your customers expect better. Visit nugenpackaging.com today and let's upgrade your brand for the win it deserves. NuGen Packaging. Modern solutions, sustainable impact. Your competitive edge.
We are back on Founders Forum with my guest, Marta Sylvester. It's a fascinating conversation. And we were talking about, the very few challenges that you've had in business. They've been many. And you've developed strengths. You guys okay in there? We're having a little engineering issue. It's okay. So anyway, we talked about some of the things that you've learned. Are there any other kind of lessons you've had that have turned into strengths that you've developed, traits that you've developed to handle what's coming in the future? Because there'll be undoubtedly more.
Yeah, I think the biggest challenge that I think we had was really with clients and clients asking us to figure out ways that they could scale those materials that we were working with. So aluminum being one of them. And so trying to work with contract manufacturers and other companies that could allow us some line time so that we can work out those challenges. And the good news is that we did have, we find out we have a lot of friends in the industry. And those friends have allowed us to come in and sit with them and kind of work through these challenges with innovation. And we love that. We love to be able to lean on and innovate with other manufacturers. And so, you find out who your friends are. You find out who those companies are that are aligned with your vision. So
collaboration and mastermind type approach to solving problems. I want to ask you about something else too, because you're a woman in manufacturing, and we've had one on recently, Carla Trotman, who's got an amazing story. But in all fairness, her business was founded by her parents, primarily her father. But you're a founder of a manufacturing company, a woman manufacturing-owned company. How has that presented any challenges of its own?
Well, we don't manufacture, but we work closely with manufacturers.
Right, I understand.
So it really hasn't presented a problem. I find that if you go in with a very open mindset and a collaborative mindset, most manufacturers, especially in this innovation space, really want to work with you, right? They understand that you have a strength that maybe they don't. And so if we can work together, we can create something really wonderful that is sustainable and profitable. Right.
So because of what you're doing, you're pre-selecting the companies you're working with, and
Definitely.
They, by definition, have to be open-minded, which helps a lot, I would think.
Definitely.
That's great. So, and tell me about, so you have some employees. Is company culture important to you?
Yes. So it's super important. And the thing that I always tell everyone as soon as they come in is, we have to lift each other up, but also you don't know what you don't know. Like I have an open door. If there's something that you want to learn, if there's something that you're doing that you don't understand, come in. If I don't know it, we'll figure it out together. We'll learn together. So it's that open door policy that I think is super important.
Is it a literal door? Are you all in the same office, or are you virtual?
No,
or
we're all in the same office.
We're all in the same office. Okay,
Yeah.
Well, that's unusual these days.
Yeah.
Okay. Our previous guest today, Ronica, clearly has a PR firm, and it's totally virtual. And she described how you can still create culture, and she works really hard on that. And I'm finding different, there's all different variations of how people create culture today, which is pretty interesting. So let's look at the future. So you are where you are. I think things are going pretty well for your company. Mm-hmm. If I were to ask you, if this were 3 years from today, Marta, and we're talking, so it's December 17th of 2028, and we're having a conversation about what happened over the last 3 years, what would that look like for you business-wise, and it could be personally or family-wise as well. What would that look like? What would success over that 3-year period look like for you?
So the thing, I'm often asked that question, and the one thing that for me is super important is that I've made a dramatic impact in the packaging industry where sustainability is concerned. That I've disrupted it to the point where we're moving away from plastic where it doesn't need to be. And there is room for plastic. For sure, there are places where plastic is important, but not everywhere. And so I want to be able to be that company within the next 3 years to have made that dramatic impact with different materials, with aluminum, with glass, with paper. As paper continues to innovate, I think that's also going to be that next horizon that is going to require somebody that really understands innovation as it pertains to manufacturing and scale. And so that's kind of where I want to be. I want to be that innovator. That's who we are. You
kind of are now already, right? And are you? It sounds to me like you're a leader as in the industry as it goes, right?
We are, but we're still in the infancy stage, and that's what I tell everybody. Like, we're still figuring it out, and that's okay. Yeah, that's okay. That's how things start. And
if I can, I'm going to guess in 3 years you're still figuring it out too. Doesn't mean, but it sounds like
in certain places, right.
But because that's the nature of change, the nature of evolution, the nature of the rapid changing world that we're in. But at the same time, it sounds like you'd like to be, when people think of sustainable packaging, you'd like them to say NuGen is the company, right?
Right. And oh my God, that Marta, she was crazy in 2012 when she said that aluminum was going to be the next phase in packaging for Pharma OTC. They all looked at me like I was crazy.
So you were the first in that.
We were the first in the United States. How
about that? So that's already remarkable.
In Nutra and in OTC.
Remarkable. Anything else you'd add to that? So I like that it's not just about revenue growth. I like that it's not just about the normal things when you're growing a business. Anything on the personal side you'd like to see 3 years from now?
Yeah, so we're a women-owned business, and I like that we can extend our hand to other women and be a place where they can cultivate their professional career. We want to be that company.
That you're bringing people into the company to help them cultivate their careers.
Yeah. And they don't necessarily have to be within our company necessarily, but if there are other people that need a helping hand or that need some advice, I'm here for it.
Do you have a way of doing that? Are you thinking of a nonprofit or
Sure. No, so we're stepping it up. I'm stepping it up personally in 2026. We are working very closely with WeBank, and I'm going to be an ambassador, if you will, for WeBank because they're an amazing organization. They're just really there for all the women and helping us with our pitch, with everything. They're great.
How do you think it's going? I just recently saw the Philadelphia Business Journal and the top CEOs, and it's by far the biggest group of women that I've seen, CEOs ever, and very diverse group of CEOs, women and men alike. Do you think we've progressed a lot, and where do you think we are on the line of progress in regard to women leaders in business?
So I think what I'm going to say is like anything else, there are always ebbs and flows.
Right.
And so have we progressed? 100%. I mean, when I started, I was usually the only female in the room. And now it's kind of cool. I'm, sometimes on a video call with a client and it's all women, or it's a nice mixed bag of men and women, or young people and older people. I think that especially today, progress looks really good. It's aside from everything else that's going on in the world, I think from that perspective, we are seeing more women and men collaborating in a way that I certainly didn't see growing up.
I'm guessing you weren't really intimidated when you were being the scrappy Brooklynite. You weren't intimidated when you were the only woman in the room.
No.
But it probably gives you some comfort to know that you're surrounded by other women leaders, I would imagine.
Yeah. I mean, I'll say I wasn't intimidated, but I did sometimes question if I should be in the room.
Yeah.
Right? Like that
The
imposter syndrome.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, lots of people have that, not just women.
Yeah.
So we talk about that a lot.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so we've kind of talked about this already, but one of the questions that you wanted to be asked was thoughts about your legacy. And we kind of addressed that in terms of the business, but anything you would add to that?
Maybe not so much a legacy. I mean, the legacy is about making substantive change in the industry and really seeing things, move toward a more sustainable path. But maybe to be able to look back and say to my kids, "Hey, promise kept." Right.
Right.
You told me to make a change, and I did, and here we are. Look what Mom did.
Do they recognize that today?
Yes.
Yeah, I would imagine. That's pretty cool. And speaking of kids, if you were talking to yourself as a kid, as a younger person, what advice would you give you?
I would say don't give up on that degree. Keep moving forward, even if it's one class at a time, one class a semester. I think that's super important to do that. And it's the imposter syndrome. Don't worry about it. Own it. You're good. If you don't know it, you don't know it. It's all good.
Yep. Well, there's that thing of if you become how you act. So if you don't have it, you act that way, right? Or become what you think about. And just go for it.
But it's not just that. Like I tell my kids, like it's you don't know what you don't know.
Right.
But when you find out you don't know it,
right,
make sure you know it.
Right.
Learn.
Right. Grow and learn.
Yeah.
They were just giving me the 1 minute warning. I got it, but that's okay. You're a reader. What kind of books do you like to read?
I love self-help books. I love business books, and historical novels are probably my favorite, and the thing that I'm kind of leaning toward now, just to have a little bit of that, that fantasy with some of that historical context, and just a place where I can kind of relax a little bit.
I appreciate that. I really appreciate having you here and hearing your great story. Thank you for being here, Marta Sylvester. Thank you all for listening to Founders Forum, and we look forward to seeing you again and speaking to you again next week.
We hope you enjoyed your time with Founders Forum today and you found value to take with you throughout your day. Join us again next week for another episode of Founders Forum on WWDB Talk Radio, and always at the Founders Forum show page at WWDBAM.com.